Welcome back to the Pro Football Hall of Fame right here in Canton, Ohio, the most inspiring place on earth. My name is Jake Ray. I'm the Youth and Education Manager here, and we are super excited for our next edition of the Pro Football Hall of Fame's Before the Snap series. This program, if you've never seen it before, is a very cool program. You're going to get to learn all about the different careers in and around the NFL. There's more than just being a player. There's more than just being a coach. If you're interested in sports or truly any field, you can have a job within the sports industry. And we're going to learn about a really cool job today. If you've tuned in before, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you're excited to learn about another cool career in and around the NFL. Right here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, it's our mission to honor the heroes of the game, to preserve its history, to promote its values, and to celebrate excellence everywhere. Those values we promoted, those of commitment, integrity, courage, respect, and excellence, all of which not only make our Hall of Famers great football players, they make them great people as well, and truly can make you a great employee of any organization. We're going to go through a bunch of awesome questions today with our special guest, and you're going to hear these values pop up. And it's cool to see how they aren't just about the game of football. They transcend into your everyday life as well. Now, before we get started, I do have a few thank yous I like to pass out. First of all, I'd like to thank our special guest today, Mr. Eric Prosise of the Green Bay Packers, for being a part of our Before the Snap series and truly everything you do for the game of football, and indirectly, and for you specifically, everything you've done for us here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. We'll get into that special relationship and what the Hall of Fame means to you. But truly, thanks for taking time out of your day. And thank you for everything you do for the game of football, especially the week that we're in this week with the NFL draft. Secondly, I'd like to thank our teachers, administrators, educators, professors, anybody who allowed us to come into your classroom today to talk a little bit about different careers in and around the game of football. We know this school year, it's almost to an end. It's been a really crazy one. But we're super excited to be just a small part of your learning experience. Lastly, got to thank all of our students, not only for tuning in today, but for all the great interaction we've had so far this school year. We love seeing your questions. We love seeing you guys in the comment section, seeing from where you guys are watching. So make sure today, comment, let us know where you're watching from, see how many great universities we can get represented here today. So today, we are lucky and grateful to be joined by Canton, Ohio's own Eric Prosise. Grew up in the shadow of the Pro Football Hall of Fame and instilled a love for sports in him from a very early age. High school computer classes also created a love for technology, which resulted in pursuing a degree in computer science and engineering from the University of Toledo. After graduating, he was able to merge his two passions by working for the Disney Technology Group at ESPN. After 5 years in Bristol, Eric fulfilled a lifelong dream by joining the historic Green Bay Packers organization as a web application developer, where he just finished his second season. And if you watched this program before, you probably know my favorite team is the Green Bay Packers. So I promise I'm not going to try and be biased today, but we are super excited to welcome our special guest today, Mr. Eric Prosise. Eric, welcome to the program today.
Thank you very much for having me. Good morning, or I guess it's afternoon out there for you guys about now. But I'm really excited to be here. I'm glad to do this, and I can't wait.
Awesome. Well, we're going to start the program off like we do every time and kind of get a background on what you do on your day-to-day life. So with your job with the Green Bay Packers right now, what is it? What's your title? And what does your day-to-day life look like for the organization?
So my title is the Football Technology Web Application Developer. Basically what that means day to day and just overall, I work on developing web applications that our football organization can use to either make better decisions or to make their jobs just more efficient. I work closely with the scouting department to help them. We also my group works with the coaching staff. I mean, anyone involved in football, we touch and interact with. And so I just help work developing applications that try to make everyone's jobs easier. So day to day, I'm basically just either working on those applications or meeting with people to try to figure out how to best make their lives easier, so that's pretty much it. Like every day is kind of the same, but not the same at the same time, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. Definitely know what that means. So, a lot of people's job, it day in and day out, you're pretty much doing the same sort of thing. So it definitely sounds like your job is kind of something different, each day you walk into the building, but more specifically, during the NFL season versus not the NFL season, your job has to look a little bit different. So what are some of the differences between what you're doing in season and then maybe some of the stuff you're working on out of season around this time?
Yeah, during the season, it's there's a very singular focus on getting ready for games, right? It's very much like anything that we do or any like little projects, we kind of get it's everything is like very important getting ready for Sunday night. Once the season's over, the attention shifts to the draft, and so it starts becoming draft preparation, making sure that everything is ready for the that big event in April. I mean, it's a pretty big deal. The scouting department works on the draft all year. I mean, they start in May for next year's draft. So it's just during the season, it's focusing on the next game on Sunday. Once the season's over, it starts becoming, like I said, draft prep, and also just taking a step back and realizing what during the season, what could we have done during the season to make things better. It's a lot of evaluation and making sure things are better for next year.
So we had night one of the draft last night. We're leading up to night two tonight, followed by day three tomorrow.
Yep.
So for you specifically, you mentioned a lot of your work is going into preparing for this week. This is like your Super Bowl when it comes to the NFL season. So is there any little things kind of more in detail when it comes to the draft, things that you do on a day-to-day basis or things you prepared? And how then does the coaching staff and the scouting department utilize those applications, those things that go way over my head to, ultimately select those players?
Yeah, I mean the biggest thing that we're trying to accomplish, and like I said with my job specifically, is to kind of move everything into moving into the 21st century almost sounds mean, but it's like we want to make sure that our scouts have access to all of the information. We have this giant database of players and information and scouting reports, and we want to make sure that they have access to all that information anywhere in the country that they are without needing to worry about carrying, paper, binders, or carrying, even just their laptop. Our goal is to get it so they can, even just their team issued iPad or their phone, like they can access and pull up all this information. So it's mostly making sure that everybody has access to all the information they need wherever they want, and also making it so that they can see that information in a way that makes sense, if that makes, what I mean? So that's like my biggest focus, like I said, especially around the draft, during the draft, making sure that all that information we need, they can just couple clicks, that information is there and ready for them to have, without needing like manual intervention either, of moving, like, when a guy gets drafted, putting him up on a magnet board. It's like, we can just have it show up somewhere, so it's mostly just trying to make sure that everybody's jobs are easier. That's my big thing, is trying to make everyone else's job easier.
So when everybody watching today, when you're watching the draft tonight and tomorrow, I'm sure you guys watched it last night. When you see that clock ticking down, those coaches are using this platform, specifically with the Green Bay organization, to help make sure those players are getting chosen to help fill their team, fill those draft spots, fill up the organization. Now what we're going to do is, normally, throughout this program, we got Nathan sitting out reading questions, but today Nathan is out from behind the table. He's out in our museum, and he's in a spot. He's going to be through a bunch of different spots in the museum today to showcase to all of our watchers and viewers today just how cool and all the great things we have on display here at the Hall of Fame. This was cool for us because we get to go to a lot of different Packers things on display. So we're super excited today. Eric, I see there you got your Hall of Fame polo on. Not a lot of people have those, in their closet, but you do. And I think we're going to learn a little bit about your connection to Canton, Ohio here in a second. So I'm going to throw it out to Nathan Martin, who's in the Hall of Fame right now.
Hey, thank you, Jake, for sending it out here to me live in our museum. I'm actually in the lobby where guests from literally all around the world come through our doors here. They get welcomed by our staff and our volunteers. And one of the first questions that they typically will ask is, Why is the Pro Football Hall of Fame here? Why is it in Canton, Ohio, hometown of our guest, Eric Prosise? Why is it in Canton? And we tell them, there's three primary reasons why we're here in Canton, Ohio. If you go back to September 17th, 1920, what we now know as the NFL was founded here in Canton, Ohio. There was a guy by the name of Ralph Hay. He owned the Canton Bulldogs, a now defunct NFL team. And he called together a group of owners. They met in his car dealership that he owned. That's why we've got this Hubmobile behind me. And they met there and they kind of crafted together some rules. His Canton Bulldogs team and the first president of the league, first superstar in the league, was Jim Thorpe. That's reason number two why the Pro Football Hall of Fame is here in Canton, Ohio. And then that Canton Bulldogs team in 1922 and 23 was your first, I guess, dynasty, you could say, when they won the championship. So those three reasons early on in the league's history is really a big part of why Canton is significant to football history, and why in the 1960s, when they were looking for a home, Canton stepped up and became that place to be the home for the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and the home, like I said, for our guest Eric. And Eric, you being from Northeast Ohio, growing up just kind of like Jake said, in the shadow of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and you're wearing that polo. Your dad actually works here. He's a colleague of ours at the Hall. What does the Hall of Fame mean to you now that you work in the NFL and you kind of have that background growing up with the Hall in your backyard?
I mean, I absolutely love the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I mean, it was something that growing up, it was always there, which was awesome. I mean, I remember when I was little, they used to do, I don't know if they still do this program, but like the Friday after Thanksgiving, I think it was kids got in for free, or there was some sort of discount. I don't know. I was young. I just remember at the end of it, they had a goodie bag of just stuff from the gift shop, I'm sure, but all the kids got something. So it was like, that was awesome when you're a little kid. But it was something that we always went to, and then obviously we would go to all the events around Hall of Fame weekend. I mean, it's just always a big deal. Everyone's coming into town. So I loved growing up there, and I loved visiting and, going to see everything. And then as I've got older and moved, and lived in different parts of the country, it was always like, whenever someone would ask where I was from, I would say I was from Canton, and, either they would say, or I'd say like, oh yeah, where the Pro Football Hall of Fame is. And then I would meet people and they'd be like, oh man, like that's been like I've wanted to go there like my entire life. Like that's like a bucket list idea, and it's like, it took me aback at first. And I was like, that's just where I grew up. It's there, it's the Hall of Fame, but it's like meeting people. And especially, like I said, once I started working in sports, it was like realizing how important it is to so many people. It was like, it really took it to like that next level for me. It's like, man, like I was really lucky to grow up where I did, and to grow up so close. Cause like I said, it instilled that passion for football in me at a young age. And I'm just like, so thankful that, that I had that, and I was able to spend as much time at the Hall and learning about football when I was younger. So yeah, I love it. I love the Hall of Fame. You didn't even have to tell me where you were standing. I knew where you were in the building. So it's just, I love it. It's great.
Yeah. And I think we would echo the same thing, Eric. We all love the Hall. Myself being someone that grew up locally, I can remember coming up here. We do still have Free Kids Friday each year after Thanksgiving. So your memory is not failing you at this point. That's something awesome that we still got going on. And you said you knew where we're at. We'll see. We're going to have some more questions throughout the museum. So we'll see how well you remember the museum, I guess, as we go from place to place and have some more questions for you throughout. But I'm going to send it back to Jake for questions at this point.
All right. Thanks, Nathan. And you talk about, being from Canton and what the Hall of Fame means. And here at the Hall of Fame, we like to say we're unapologetically football. We know there's so many things out there that can teach life lessons, but here at the Hall of Fame, we're going to focus on the game of football. So for someone like yourself, grew up around in the area, grew up around the game of football, and now work full time in it, what does the game of football teach those who love to watch it? Play it, coach it? What are those life lessons that people can take away from the game of football?
I mean, it's sometimes, I don't know if it sounds cliche, but it's like, I mean, hard work, it is hard to play football. A lot of preparation goes into every single game. So it's like, just, working hard, I come into work and I see every single day, like it's, you know, it's not just the 53 guys on the roster, you know, the expanded practice squad. It's the, you know, the equipment staff, the trainers, the nutrition guys, front office coaches, you know, the guys in technology with me. Like it is truly a team effort. And I guess that maybe that's the other big thing that I've especially learned, like once I've started working for an NFL team. It's like you get a real appreciation for everything that happens behind the scenes and just what goes into putting on an NFL game from the team perspective, like not even, you know, to talk about what goes on from putting it on from a fan and an entertainment perspective, but like you just seeing how hard everybody works and how diligent they are and how passionate they are about their job. It's just, those are the kind of things that like you get in football that I don't know if you get everywhere else, because football is only played one game a week, you know, for an entire week, everyone's focus is on one thing, you know, so it's got that, you've got that singular focus, that singular passion. So it's just, like I said, hard work, have fun. I mean, also at the end of the day, we play a game, you know, so it's like, you should have fun when you're doing something. Like that's also very important. Like because if you don't have fun, you don't have passion for your job, you don't have passion for what you're doing, it's going to be harder to give everything that you can. It's like when you're loving it, like, I mean, I love my job. It's so much easier to go in and work that little extra or give that a little bit extra when you really love what you do and can see the results at the end of the day, you know? So it's just little things like that like you get that with football. Like I've worked in a couple other places that it's just not there. You know, football is something that brings so many people together.
And I think that's cool because a lot of things you mentioned right there, if you took the word football out and replaced any job, anything else in there, it would sound like you were an expert in that field. And that's, I think, the cool thing about football, like you said, is that it does do so much in so many different areas. And, you know, I grew up, I played the game. You know, Nathan and Jerry, they would joke that, you know, they never played a down of football in their lives. And they know what the game of football can teach just because they see the power that it has. So it's very cool to see that, you know, outside of our building here in Canton, Ohio, that message still rings true. You know, we read through your bio at the beginning here. You know, you said you kind of started having that passion for what you do now once you started taking some computer classes growing up. And one of the questions we like to, because we probably got some high school students tuning in right now who might know what they want to do, but most of them, I'll say, because I was in that boat, you know, don't really know what they want to do with their career. So if you could go back to high school, Eric, what would some tips that you would give all those students in high school now that maybe don't know what they want to do and how to find, you know, that passion, that niche that fits them the best?
I mean, I guess my advice would just be to just start somewhere, find something that you like to do. You know, like I said, I when I was younger, I always kind of liked playing around with computers. So I took some computer programming courses. You know, if, you know, you find something that you like doing, you know, take a course in it, see if it feels right. Sometimes it will, and you can go from there. Sometimes it won't. That's okay too. Try something else. You know, there's no rule that says that you have to pick your career in high school. You know, I shouldn't be saying that to high school kids, but it's like, and I apologize to any teachers, but it's like, you don't have to set your life in this, you know, in high school. It's like, it's okay to try something and say, that was fun. I would suggest try to get something out of everything you try. You know, don't try something and then like just throw it away, be like, oh, that was a complete waste of time. It's like, if you're going to try something, do it and try it, you know, and get everything out of it. And then afterwards, you know, evaluate and say, oh, like maybe that wasn't for me, or, oh, maybe that'll help you transition into another career that you know, another life path that you really want to pursue. So, I mean, you know, I guess I got a little lucky that I liked, you know, programming. And so I decided, hey, I'm going to go to college and do that. And I continued liking it in college. And so it also felt like a way to keep being into sports, you know, like I'm not 6'5" that runs a 4.3 40, you know, so playing professional sports was never going to be an option. So it was I found the thing that I was good at and figured out a way to flip that into the career that I wanted. Right. So it's like, it's almost like two different paths. It's like figure out what you want to do and try a bunch of different things, figure out what you're good at, and then figure out how those merge together, you know?
That's great. Yeah. I think that's great because there are so many opportunities in sports. You know, we always say, you know, if you like accounting, you know, everybody says, oh, you're going to work for an accounting firm, but every sports organization has an accounting department. We have an accounting department. You know, there's any job there's a pretty good chance if there's a job out there, there's a way it can tie into sports. So if you, like you said, if you've got that passion, there's definitely a way to tie in. And it might not be sports. We're completely okay with that. Don't saying you have to work in sports now. We're definitely, you know, proponents of that. But there's so many different ways to link your passions. And I think that truly is going to lead to, you know, a better, successful, more enjoyable career down the road. We're going to continue on our tour inside the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So we're going to send it back out to Nathan Martin, who's in front of another Packer-related display here in Canton, Ohio.
Yes, Jake, I am in front of another Packer-related display. But before I explain why I'm standing in front of this, I want to tell everyone where I'm at. I'm on the second floor of our rotunda. If you can picture that iconic image, the rotunda. Some people say it looks like a juicer. Some people say it looks like a football, but that's the rotunda. I'm on the second floor of that part of the museum. And on this part, or in this part of the museum, we highlight different aspects throughout the history, the first century of football, whether it's fantastic finishes, it's the road to equality, pioneers of the game, or dynasties. And when we think dynasties, you got to think of the Green Bay Packers, right? I mean, we're looking here, the Green Bay Packers, Titletown, USA. You think back to Coach Lombardi, or even before him, Coach Lambeau. I mean, I brought my paper here so I could have my cheat sheet. 1929, 1930, 1931, 1936, 1939, 1944. Are you getting tired yet? No. 1961, 1962, 1965, 1966, 1967, 1996, 2010. The Green Bay Packers have won the most championships in NFL history, 13 of them. And one of those players, and we'll come over here and look, that was on that Lombardi era Packers team was linebacker Ray Nitschke. I mean, really, really helped lead that defense. People think of, you know, Bart Starr or Paul Hornung, but that defense was stellar. And he was the leader on that defense on the all-decades team from the 1960s. He's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And you can see now that this franchise has very, very rich history. And Eric, you're lucky enough to work on the staff for the Green Bay Packers. So what does it mean to you? You ask what the Hall meant to you, but what does it mean to be working for arguably the NFL franchise with the greatest tradition in history in the league?
I mean, it's everything. Like I said, for a fan of the NFL, I mean, it's something that you almost like can't describe. Like, I mean, I walk in, you know, I work at, our offices are in Lambeau Field. So I drive to Lambeau Field every single day, and you can just like breathe in the history of the town. Like when even just driving around, like it's everywhere. I mean, they call it Titletown, and that's no coincidence. Like it's not a coincidence that it's not just the success that the team has had, which 13-time world champions, like you rattled off, you know, but just the way that the, you know, the town has, you know, embraces the team. I mean, you know, Lambeau Field is in a neighborhood basically. But I mean, just feeling the importance that the team has to the area, it just takes on that much more of, you know, that much more significance for me. Cause like I said, I mean, I always loved, you know, football growing up. I mean, when I was little, I grew up in Ohio. So, I mean, I was a Browns fan, but like you appreciated the Packers, you know, because I mean, I think I had a Brett Favre jersey when I was little, and you just know, if you spend any amount of time learning about the history of the NFL, you know about the Green Bay Packers. They're the most iconic franchise in the sport. So it's awesome working there and being there. And then, like I said, meeting people from around here who love the team, and it's like so important to them. It's like, you just want to do your best to make everybody else proud. Like, you don't want to let anybody down. It's like, we want to do everything we can to continue, you know, our winning ways. So it's great. I love working there. It's a tremendous organization. I couldn't ask for anything better, honestly.
Yeah, and you were talking about how every day you drive into Lambeau Field, and I know we joke as the staff here at the Hall, like I think sometimes we start to take it for granted that we walk into work and we walk past these bronze busts, we walk past the Lombardi Trophy named after Coach Vince Lombardi from the Packers, and it's probably a challenge for you as well to not ever take that for granted that you're driving into work at Lambeau Field, and it's got to be really, really special. And I think the way that you just summarized what it means to work for the franchise. I think you did a really good job of that. And I'm going to send it back to Jake, though, for some more questions. You'll hear from me. We got a couple more stops, I guess, along the way in our tour. But let's send it back to Jake for some more questions.
All right. Thanks, Nathan. Yes, definitely some more really cool stops as we make our way through the Pro Football Hall of Fame Museum. So, Eric, you talked about what it meant for you to work for the Green Bay Packers. And as a Packers fan, I can kind of almost feel that drive into Lambeau Field, what it's like to walk into the atrium every day there in Green Bay. But you also spent some time in Bristol, Connecticut. And for those sports fans, when, Bristol, Connecticut, that's ESPN. The worldwide leader in sports. And then also you spent time, obviously, getting your degree at the University of Toledo. And along that journey, you obviously have met a ton of different people, those related to your career, those special guests, keynote speakers, so many different people. And along that journey comes building those relationships and building that network. And if you work in sports, especially if you're in college right now, networking is kind of that buzzword, that key thing that everybody, your professors, your advisors are really striving as a college student to go out and do. So for somebody who's in college right now that might be trying to get their network started, what are some tips and tricks you have for them to help get that jumping, get that rolling, and then continuing to better that and build relationships as they move towards their full-time career?
Yeah. I remember when I was younger, teachers and advisors would always harp on networking, and you kind of be like, all right, like that's what everybody says until you start doing it. And then you're like, oh my God, like this is like networking is like so important, it's going to sound weird, but it's like such an easy thing to do. Like for the most part, people are willing to help those come up, like they're willing to help those that they have been in that position. They remember the help that people gave them. And so they want to help other people. So it's like, the two-bit piece of advice I always try to give college kids whenever they ask this, which doesn't happen. I say that like college kids are asking me all the time, but like reaching out to people in your field, again, a lot of times you can find someone's email or, their LinkedIn profile. It's really not that difficult. Just send them a message, be like, hey, I am a senior or I'm a junior at I'll say the University of Toledo. And, I'm interested in getting into this field, do you have any advice or a lot of times the easiest way to start creating that network is just volunteer and get involved, if you're in college, go volunteer to help out on game day. Like I guarantee that if you're at a school that has a football team or any sort of athletic department, they need help on game day. They will take student volunteers, I did that. I helped, I worked in the Toledo athletic department for 2 seasons. I ran during football games, I ran copies like during the game, but you make those connections with people and it's like it's like you do that for a while. And then when ESPN airs our games, oh, hey, Eric, they need someone on the headset in the press box to call out down and distance. You want to do that? Or the color guy needs a spotter. You want to go do that? And so then you get to meet those guys and it's like, it just starts to build. So it's like, reach out to people in your field, wherever you're at, go volunteer, go help out. You're not always going to get to start out in the glamorous job. Like it's tough to hear that, but it's like, it's so true. Like sometimes you got to start like just helping out, but honestly, helping out, doing that grunt work, it gives you an appreciation for what it takes to put that kind of thing on. I volunteered for the Hall of Fame game probably 7 or 8 years. And it's like, when you're younger, like I said, it gives you that appreciation. So when you do get into a career, if you do get into a career in sports or anything, you're like, it gives you that full rounded mindset of like, okay, this is how much work actually needs to get done to put on an event like this. The last piece of advice too that I always give people with networking is network with your peers. It sounds really weird, but like, because you talk to them, but it's like, keep in touch. And it's so easy to do that nowadays with, social media. Smartphones came out when I was in college, basically. So like, it was a relatively new phenomenon, but it's like, it's so easy now to just keep in contact with the people you're doing, because if you're like, if volunteering or working somewhere, like if you get an internship, usually the people who do those kind of things, they share your passions and they're going to do big things in life also. You know what I mean? So like I and I don't know, maybe I'm spoiling one of your future questions, but I interned at ESPN. And so you do an internship like that, and the people who do things, who are in like those kind of internships, are going to go on to great things in life. And so you keep those connections, and it's like, oh, like, hey, you're doing something like this. Like, let me, either let me help you, or like, do you need somebody? Or like, hey, like, give me a shout out. When my brother moved down to North Carolina, one of my intern friends was living down there, and I set him up and helped him, find a place to live and meet someone to try to get some job interviews. So it's like, network with the people you work with, and network with the people like your bosses. Like, just like I said, just keep those connections. It doesn't have to be a lot. You don't have to blow up their phone all the time. Once every couple months, shoot someone an email being like, hey man, what are you up to? Like, how's things going? Like, keep track of that kind of stuff. Like, it's so easy, and it goes such a long way. Like, you get so much bang for your buck just by shooting off that email to like that internship boss. It's like, hey, like, I really liked working with you guys. Here's what I've been up to. Keep me in mind if you ever have a job opening. That's it. It's so easy. And it, like I said, it just goes such a long way.
And I think too, yeah, you kind of did steal my question, because I was going to ask what it means to, because you always talk about networking in college, but
Yep.
that never stops. Those building relationships never stop. And you have to continue doing that all throughout your career. So I'm definitely glad you touched on that part, because I think that is super important for young professionals all the way up to those seasoned vets, because you never know who you're going to meet. And working in the sports industry, alone, I mean, you're talking about, you look at an NFL team, you've got all these other teams you're playing against who are going to be, at your stadium, and there's a way to network there. This program, it's a way for us at the Hall of Fame to reach out to all these different people across the country. Students who are watching now have the opportunity to connect. So it's just kind of, there's so many different ways to do that. And you just got to kind of put that foot forward and really reach out and start to build that network. That being said, we've got our next stop along our tour throughout the Pro Football Hall of Fame, which, when we started, it really wasn't, we never really thought of it as a tour, but it really kind of is a tour, taking you through some of the great spots here in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And our next stop is probably the most iconic, what everybody thinks of when they think of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So I'm going to send it out to Nathan.
Yes, Jake, I'm standing in the Pro Football Hall of Fame gallery right now. And like you said, it is probably the most iconic room, the room that everybody, when they come to Canton, Ohio, this is the one spot they've got to spend a little bit of time in while they're here visiting, while they're here touring the museum. And you can see I'm surrounded by these bronze busts. Actually, standing right under the bronze bust of Brett Favre, my favorite player growing up, Green Bay Packers legend. Reason why I would say I'm a Green Bay Packers fan, but to kind of put it into perspective, of how great you have to be a Brett Favre or Kevin Green, Orlando Pace, whoever it may be, here that has one of these bronze busts. There's been over 300 million people in the history of football that have played the game at all levels. We're talking, all the way down to Pop Warner, 300 million. And of that 300 million, only 5 million have been good enough or lucky enough to play the game in college. Of that 5 million that played in college, only about 30,000 men and women now have played, coached, and contributed to the game at the professional level. Of that 30,000, once we enshrine our class of 2021 this year, that includes Peyton Manning, Charles Woodson, Calvin Johnson, and many others, once we enshrine them, we'll be to 354. So it's a very, very exclusive group of men that are enshrined in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And Brett Favre he's one of those guys. I mean, in his career alone, we're talking a 3-time MVP, 11 Pro Bowls. He was on the 1990s NFL All-Decade team. And throughout his career, I mean, the man rewrote the NFL record book for passing, from passing touchdowns to even interceptions. I mean, he rewrote it all. And, kind of to make a question related to your career, Eric, I think we've kind of discussed your role and how you've assisted with preparation for the NFL draft that's going on right now. But a lot of people probably don't know, or they forgot, that Brett didn't actually start on the Packers. He wasn't drafted by the Packers. He was actually drafted by the Atlanta Falcons. And then GM Ron Wolf came in and made a trade to acquire his future franchise quarterback, Brett Favre. So we were kind of curious, with your role in developing some software, do you have any type of role in assisting the coaches and the GM and the management team when they're evaluating free agents or potential players to trade for?
I appreciate that you think I'm that important. No, I like I said, I develop applications that help them make those decisions, but I don't really have that. So I guess that is a role, but I don't have any sort of evaluation or decision making role in any of that. Unfortunately, that would be awesome, but nope. I fully understand. I'm good at what I do, and so I try to do the job to the best of my ability, so that the guys that are good at what they do are able to do their job even better. So that's pretty much what I'm focused on. I'm trying to, I try to stay in my lane as much as I would love to, knock on the door and be like, hey, like you guys need someone else to, scout and do anything like that. No, I'm happy with what I do. Like I said, I'm just focused on helping them make those decisions as best as they can.
I got to be honest, Eric, I wasn't sure what your answer was going to be 100%. I knew that you did a lot with the software side, the application side, but I was really like, maybe he's like developed some type of software that like evaluates a trade and it like says whether or not it's a fair trade, that the team's winning out. And I was like, that would be kind of cool, because I know that you can get like on ESPN, and fans always will be posting on social media, oh, the team should do this trade. The trade finder says that this is a fair trade, and it'd make the Packers better. So I was like, maybe behind the scenes there is a real, trade evaluator that you've created. But I guess to date, you haven't done it yet. But maybe someday in the future, that'll be some type of software they task you with developing, some type of application you have to develop.
Yeah, could be. It's a good idea.
Yeah, so we're going to send it back to Jake. We got a couple more stops in the museum, but I'm going to send it back to him for now.
All right. Thanks, Nathan. Thank you, Eric. A great answer. And obviously, I'll echo what Nathan said. I think the reason I'm a Green Bay Packers fan is because Ron Wolf made that trade and made Brett Favre a Packer. I'm sure that goes for a lot of people, in my age bracket who watched Brett Favre growing up. Obviously, Eric, your job deals a ton with technology and all the things that I really don't understand. So we're not going to dive into the nuts and bolts of that because I'll get lost super quick. But in dealing with technology, it's the future. That's the easiest way to put it. It's ever changing. There's so many things out there that are making people's jobs just a little bit easier. And I think the last year has truly shown how important that is. And I think it's so important because you can use it to your advantage, and technology, you use it to better your craft, better yourself, better your job. So as somebody who works in the NFL, specifically in the technology field, how are you using technology to make yourself the best employee you can be? You never stop learning. Once you get a job, you're not like, you can't just sit back, kick your feet up and go, oh, cool, I got my job. I don't need to learn anymore. So how are you continuing to better yourself? Is it just, practice makes perfect? Are there classes you can watch? Are there, conferences you can go to? What are some of the things you do to make yourself the best employee you can be?
Yeah, I mean, all of the above, right? Like, practice makes perfect is a huge one. I mean, I get better at my job every day just by doing it. You learn new things while you're doing your job. Like, I'm constantly looking, like almost like self-evaluating while I'm doing things to like be like, is this the most efficient way I can do this? Is this the best way I can do it? which it's a delicate balance, because it's like at the end of the day, you still got to get your job done. So you can't take forever to just like tinker with things. But it's like that sort of like introspection of like, you do something long enough, you're like, all right, is this the best way to do this? You know, so it's like that kind of self-learning. Reading online, you know, I read a lot of like online articles and things like that about, you know, my field and software development, and kind of to keep track of where things are going, just because it changes so quickly. So you got to kind of be on top of it. Like, I don't really read that many books just because books are outdated so quickly, at least in terms of like software books. So it's like, you know, reading articles, watching YouTube seminars, you know, like TED Talks and things like that. I mean, there's thousands and, you know, hundreds of thousands of things like that. You just, any sort of YouTube tutorial, like if there's a question you have, there's probably someone who's written or done a speech about it. So, I mean, just keeping up with that kind of stuff, knowing that you're never going to stop learning, you know, that's like I don't know, that's like the dirty secret that they don't want to tell you in college, because at the end you're like, okay, I've learned everything, I'm done, I got everything I need to know. And it's like, then you get into your work and it's like, no, that was not true. So it's like, just, but again, too, if you're doing something that you like, that's fun. Like, I like learning new things. It's exciting to like realize that like, oh, like this was like the way I learned to do it, but it's like, I can get better at it. So just keeping up with like I said, online resources, they're everywhere. Like, I mean, you said like technology's, it's not going away. It just makes things so much easier. Like, you know, you can learn new things, new skills for your job by sitting on your couch, you know, like it's which is crazy. So that's the biggest thing that I, you know, just kind of like always maybe be on the lookout for like things that you can learn or things that you can do to make your job a little bit easier, a little bit better, you know.
I think that there's, like you said, there's so many ways out there to do that and learn new ways to be a better employee or whatever, be a better student, teacher, whatever it might be. So with this great segue here, we're going to go to the new part of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, our Pro Football Today gallery, where we have on display artifacts from so many great players in today's game. And Nathan is out there in front of probably a player, especially if you're a Packers fan, you might have heard of before. So Nathan, go ahead.
Yeah, Jake, thanks for sending it out here. I'm in our Pro Football Today gallery. Like you were saying, we've got stuff from the players today. And I would think that every football fan, not just Packers fans, know who this guy is. The MVP, Aaron Rodgers. And this jersey is actually almost 7 years old. He wore this back in 2014 when the Packers won their 700th career game or franchise game. And he also, in that same game against the Chicago Bears, became the quickest player to get to 25,000 career passing yards. So Aaron Rodgers was great 7 years ago. He's still great today. And the question for you, Eric, you know, as the football technology application developer, I think I got your title right. What interaction do you have with players? Maybe not Aaron Rodgers, but what interaction do you have with the players being in the building every day and on the sidelines during game day?
Yeah, pass them in the hallway sometimes and say, "Hey, what's up?" And they say, "Hey, how's it going?" No, for the most part, game day, on the sideline, I'm kind of our like liaison with the Surface tablets. So it's basically making sure that those are before the game, making sure those are operational, making sure everything's working all right. And then during the game, you know, the coaches, running them out to the coaches and then bringing them back because we can only have so many out at a time or whatever. So, I mean, just being on the sideline, you get to interact with these guys. I mean, before the game, we've got, 4 hours. And I mean, players are just guys, like they're just, they'll sit in there and talk to you for a while, they're trying to get in the zone, but at the same time, it's like, it's just their job, it's they're not like divas or anything. Like they'll talk to you. So it's like, you get to sit and talk to them for a while, or, help them out, do some sort of like, last year, some of our guys helped, like Tim Boyle would come out and throw to warm up, so it's like sometimes some of our equipment guys would go, they go throw with him. So it's like that kind of stuff. It's like, it's nice to like get that kind of like interaction where it's like, you're like, man, like these guys are, well, first off, they're this tall. So it's like, So I'm looking up at them a lot, but it's fun to, to interact with them. And like I said, then once the game starts, it's like focus, making sure getting, everyone's doing their job to win. I mean, that's the goal, right? We start the game, we want to win. So it's like everyone does their job, and it's fun. They're all awesome. Like I haven't really had any bad interactions with any players. They're all so great to get along with. So I guarantee none of them know me. So that's fine. It's, I'm at the bottom of the food chain, but they're all, which is honestly makes it even better. Like they, I'm someone on their sports staff, and everyone is super awesome. So.
Yeah, I think what you were saying about players just kind of being normal human beings, like when they show up on Sunday, they just kind of go to work the same way that you or I might show up to a job, on a random Tuesday, 9 to 5. Like for them, that Sunday game is work. Yes, it's very important. Yes, they want to win. Yes, they're competitive, but they're normal guys, and they might tell you about their life. And we've seen that working here at the Hall, talking to some of our Hall of Famers. They want to tell you about their kids or grandkids and what they're doing, or they, some story that they have about when they met their spouse, or whatever it may be. They're normal people. And I think you having that interaction with the guys in the hallways and on the field, you've acknowledged that and seen that, and we see that a little bit here at the Hall. And it's really cool to just kind of get that understanding. It kind of brings it all back down to earth, I guess you could say. And Aaron Rodgers, same way. He's a normal guy that's really, really good at football and what he does. So, Jake, we're going to send it back to you. I know you're going to come to me one more time. So, but we'll send it back to you for a couple more questions.
All right. Aaron Rodgers, also great Jeopardy host too.
Yes.
I wanted to throw that in there. Yeah. So, we talk about all these interaction with the players. You mentioned there, you're on the sidelines during the season. So looking back at your career, whether it's with the last couple of years you spent with the Packers or your time at ESPN, the cool thing about working in sports is you get to be a part of some things that not a lot of people get to be a part of. And it's just part of your job. We see that here at the Hall of Fame, especially during our Enshrinement Week powered by Johnson Controls. Nathan and I have got to travel the country to do programming with our Hall of Famers. So for you specifically, if you had to pick one moment from your career in sports that might be, the coolest moment, or the moment that really makes you step back and go, I was a part of that, working at that game, that moment, what would that moment be for you?
Man, probably so when I got the job with the Packers, it was the season that started last year. So my first game was the Monday night game against the Lions at Lambeau Field. And I think just being on the sideline when the game started and the roar, like hearing the roar of the crowd, it was just like the most surreal experience of my life. Like, everything I'd done in my life up to that point, it's like I'm at this moment, I'm in this historic, cathedral for football. I'm surrounded by 80,000 screaming Packers fans, they're playing the Lions. It's like, it's Monday Night Football. So that always gives it that extra little level of energy, and it's just like I couldn't believe it. It was absolutely incredible. So that's probably been my favorite. Like, all the games have been amazing to be to. I mean, every game at Lambeau, Arrowhead was really loud. We played there 2 years ago. But man, that first game at Lambeau was absolutely incredible. Like I'll never forget that moment.
A little fun fact, Nathan and I were actually at that game at Arrowhead when Aaron threw that crazy falling down underhand touchdown to the back of the end zone. Yes. And I will agree with you. Very, very loud stadium there at Arrowhead. And it's
not
so
quite
cool.
Lambeau, but
I agree. I will agree with that. And it's so cool because, for you and I, that's just, for you, it's another Monday. It's another game day, but there are people who, sometimes some person, that may be the one time in their life they get to go to a Green Bay Packers game. So it's very cool to kind of step back and say, I was a part of that and a part to make that game just as special as it can for all of those 80,000 fans. So last time we're going to go out to the museum. We got Nathan Martin in our last gallery here in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and another very, very iconic stop along our tour today. So Nathan, whenever you're ready, go ahead.
Yeah, Jake, thanks for sending it out here. I'm in the Lamar Hunt Super Bowl gallery here at the Hall, where we, highlight and I guess preserve the history of the game's biggest games each year, the Super Bowl. And teams are trying to win this, the Vince Lombardi Trophy, named after Packers legendary coach, because he led the team to Super Bowl wins and Super Bowl 1s and 2. And we're going to move here. I'm going to show you guys. You're going to see briefly. Yeah, we got Super Bowl 4 with the Chiefs. We've got Super Bowl 3 where Joe Namath guaranteed it. But if you go to Super Bowl 2, you see this Willie Wood jersey. And if we go over here to Super Bowl 1, you'll see this Bart Starr jersey, quarterback of the Green Bay Packers in Super Bowl 1 and 2, and kind of led that Lombardi era Packers team. He was their quarterback there on the field. You know, we've mentioned it already, 13 championships, world championships, 4 of those being Super Bowls. And Eric, you've already touched on what it means to work for a franchise with such rich history. And we know during your time, the team unfortunately hasn't been able to win another Lombardi trophy, but a couple of appearances in the NFC Championship game. And working for an NFL team, you've got your experience with ESPN, but now with an NFL team, does the success on the field, you know, the team being able to make a deep playoff run to the NFC Championship, does that make your job easier? Does it add pressure? What does the success on the field kind of create when you go into work in the office?
Well, it does create a little bit of extra, pressure, in just that you want to keep winning. I mean, I don't know, maybe not extra pressure. I mean, there's just always that level of wanting to push to the next great thing. I mean, I've been pretty fortunate. I've been here for 2 years and we've won 26 regular season games and 3 or 4 playoff games. So like, we've done a lot of winning. I don't have a ton of experience with being around the team when they're going through a rough patch. So, and I would prefer not to, honestly, if being completely truthful, but it definitely, it's like, it like sharpens your focus. It's like, we're doing really, like, everyone's doing great. Like, no one wants to be the one that like slacks off, that like lets down anybody. So like, I think, like I said, I think it like just hones everybody's focus. It's like, okay, especially as you get towards the end of the season, everyone's tired, everyone's hurt, you just want to make sure that like you keep that mindset. It's like, okay, like we, 2 more weeks and it's like, we gotta get through, we gotta power through this. Like, we got this, like, then we get into playoffs and it's like, it's not necessarily like, there's extra pressure. It's the playoffs, but like, it's just more like, you don't want to let anybody down. Not like I'm like worried to let anybody down. It's more of a, you want to lift everybody up type deal. So like, it's way more fun when you win. So we've definitely done a lot of that. So the office has been a lot of fun for a lot of the time. And I think we'll keep doing that, honestly. So
yeah, I like how you said it's not necessarily added pressure, but when you're having success, it's going to hone in your focus. It's going to sharpen, your level of intensity maybe. And you don't want to let people down. You want to keep succeeding and you want to keep winning games because it makes it a lot more fun when you win football games. And that's all for me out here in the museum. Students, thank you so much for tuning in. I know we didn't get to ask your questions, but please, put your questions in the chat. Maybe we'll be able to get some answers put in there. But I would actually encourage you to take a step further and connect with Eric, connect with Mr. Prosise on LinkedIn and send your questions to him. Tell him you saw him on Before the Snap and let him hear from you with your specific questions. But that's all for me in the museum. I'm going to send it back to Jake to kind of wrap things up for us.
All right. Thanks, Nathan. Appreciate you giving us an inside look to the Pro Football Hall of Fame here this afternoon. And Eric, we'll wrap things up for all of our viewers. They could probably tell you what questions coming next. But we've had a lot of, learned about your job on and off the field, your journey to where you got till today, and a lot of great tips and tricks to make yourself, the best professional that you can be. But if you can sum everything up we talked about today, what is that one piece of advice you would want somebody, whether they're in high school, college, they're a young professional, or even a seasoned vet? What would that one piece of advice you want somebody to take away from today's program be?
Oh boy. Work hard. Like, put as much passion as you're able to muster into your job. It's incredible how much that shines through. like when you love what you do, or even if, if it's not your favorite thing, if it's the step to this thing, if you put the passion, the dedication into your craft, it will shine through and people will notice that, and it will make it that much easier to stand out and get that next opportunity if that's what you want. Or I mean, if it's the job, if you're in your, if you find yourself in your dream position, still, like, it makes the day go by so much easier when you're passionate about what you do, right? So like, work, like I said, work hard, do the best work that you can do. Try to find that passion, try to find that thing that you love to do. If it's football, that's awesome. We'd, love to have you in the NFL. If it's not, that's awesome too. Do something that makes you happy. And I think so, like, that's like my big thing. The other one, I go back to it, but like it's network, keep in contact with people. It's not that hard. Like, just keep in touch. Always try to, remember that, again, too, maybe tying those together. If you work hard, the people you worked with are going to remember that. And they're going to be like, it's like your boss going to be like, oh, we need a position. Oh man, we had that one intern that, he worked really hard, or he did really good work for us. He's reached out a couple of times. Like, I know he's working at he's working at this job. Let's see if he's available. He stayed in the field. He stayed in the industry. He's learning new things. Let's see if we can bring him back. Or even just like, like I said, someone you work with, it's like, hey man, like, I need some help doing this. Like, can you help me out? And then maybe that gets you to meet some new people. So it's like, work hard, be passionate, network, keep in contact with people. I think those are the big things. That's what I would, that's the advice that I would want if I was, if I was a younger kid. And like, that's the advice that I would give to everybody out there right now watching.
Awesome. What a great way to wrap up this installment of the Pro Football Hall of Fame's Before the Snap series. Eric, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. Like I said, this is kind of the week that all your work comes to fruition during the NFL draft. Hope tonight goes well, leading into tomorrow, wrapping up the 3-day experience that the draft is right here in Northeast Ohio, in Cleveland, after, last night's first round success. Hopefully that continues, like I said, tonight, into tomorrow. Before we leave today, make sure you tune in to all the Pro Football Hall of Fame social media channels, Green Bay Packers as well, to see all the great content coming out around the draft that we're immersed in right now. All the history, all the new picks, new members, people who are fulfilling their dream and becoming an NFL draftee, a star in the NFL. Make sure you tune into the Pro Football Hall of Fame's podcast, The Mission, hosted by our great friend here at the Hall of Fame, Mr. Jameer Howerton, as he's interviewing all types of people that are in and around the NFL draft. Stay tuned to all those platforms. Like, subscribe, follow, whatever you've got to do, whatever it might be for that specific platform. Right here on Facebook, make sure you tune in. We've got some great Heart of a Hall of Famer programs powered by Extreme Networks premiering here coming up. Next week, we've got Larry Zonka, followed by Orlando Pace, Alan Faneca. So a lot of great names coming up here. And then make sure you tune in us next week right here on the Pro Football Hall of Fame's Facebook pages. We'll be live Friday on May 7th with special guest Riley Hicklinski from the Cleveland Browns, who works in their scouting department. So we've heard what happens leading up to the draft. So now we're going to get the story on what happens after the draft and how that reset starts and how they're already looking forward to the draft in 2022. So as I said at the beginning, Eric, thank you so much for all you do for the game of football, and specifically thank you for everything you've done here for the Hall of Fame throughout your entire life. I know your dad, Mark, he's here this morning watching with us. So we thank him for getting you involved and getting you immersed here at the Hall of Fame culture for sure.
Yep. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. This was amazing. And I mean, thank you for everything that you guys do, at the Hall, for preserving the game's history and, advancing the legacy of all the Hall of Famers. So I very much appreciate it. Thank you guys.
Well, on behalf of everybody here, myself, Nathan, Jerry, your dad, all of our staff here at the Hall of Fame, I'd like to thank you for that. And thank you for everything you've done for the game and for us here at the Hall of Fame. For everybody watching today, thank you so much. And we'll see you live right here on Facebook next week for the Pro Football Hall of Fame's Before the Snap series. Thank you, everybody.